Comadres, would you put your name and the city in the chat so we know who's here?
Absolutely. All right. Welcome, comadres and friends. Tonight's session is entitled Writing Our Stories, Pivoting from Ordinary to Extraordinary. We are interviewing a new award-winning playwright and the 2021 Nora Award winner for community service, Dr. Charley Ferrer. Dr. Charley was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2016 and thyroid cancer in 2017. Frustrated with the lack of information and treatment options provided to cancer patients, she created the Cancer Tamer Foundation, which focuses on education and empowerment. In 2019, she wrote the play Breast Cancer Diaries, which premiered to a sold-out crowd in New York. And now again in 2023, the play received rave reviews in Florida. We'll talk with Dr. Charley about how she turned her story into a play, something she had never done before. We will also discuss writing, cancer, and power, and female empowerment. Our interviewer tonight is Comadre Debbie Bonilla, one of the facilitators of the Boston Comadres Network and a cancer survivor herself. A Puerto Rican born and raised in Cambridge, Debbie is currently the Family Engagement Specialist for the Cambridge Public Schools. She co-founded The Spot, a place that provides free clothing and other necessities to the community. And she co-founded a nonprofit called Equity Roadmap, a program that focuses on addressing the opportunity gap with middle school age youth in Cambridge. Debbie's life work has been in ensuring equity, access, participation, and rights for all. Comadre Debbie, take it away.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, Nora, for the opportunity to interview Dr. Charley. And it's so great to meet you, Charley. So we'll get right into it. You had breast cancer in 2016 and then thyroid cancer in 2017. And you had a terrible experience recuperating from that. And we want to know if you suffered from chemo brain, chemo fog, and how that frustration, going through that. Also, how did that turn into a TV program, a cancer foundation, and an award-winning play, which is amazing.
Well, thank you. First, let me say thank you so much, Nora and Maria, for having me here, and Debbie for interviewing me. So it's a great honor to always talk to Las Comadres. So you're near and dear to my heart. And thank you for your support during the play. Las Comadres was one of our sponsors for helping promote the Breast Cancer Diaries. So for me, I was diagnosed, like you said, in 2016 with breast cancer, and it was a very arduous journey. What I found that was most frustrating for me was the lack of information that was being given to women and me in particular, because I was like, oh my God, tell me what I need to know. Tell me what I need to know. And I actually had one physician that said, look, we'll let you know what you need to know when we feel you need to know it. And I looked at him like, isn't that kind of like waiting for me to get hit by the bus before you tell me how to cross the street? And so I went out and I started looking for my own information. I was calling the American Cancer Society at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning saying, I got questions, tell me. And so they were very good at, they have the helplines. So they are very good about that. And so I found that I wanted to get more information about what was going on and learn everything I could. And that's where everything spiraled from. Because I'm an educator at heart and a healer. And so anything I learn, I want to share. And that's what I started doing with my support group. And then I met Deborah Santulli Barone, who was my co-star in the television show. And she wanted to do the same thing that I wanted to do, was share knowledge. And we started the television show. Actually, what's funny is that we started the television show during my second surgery. for breast cancer because I had a lot of complications from the first one. And it was my way of staying sane because I could focus on the television show instead of focusing on all the issues that were going on for me. You asked about chemo brain. I actually refused chemotherapy. And my piece on refusing chemotherapy was there's for those that have breast cancer, in specific DCIS, which means that the cancer stayed in the duct area and it didn't go out of your duct lymph nodes. And so because mine was contained, they were able to do a test called oncotypal diagnostic testing. And so when they took a look at that, they said that for me, chemo would only be 14% effective. And so when I looked at that, I'm like, okay, well, it's only going to help me by 14%. But what about the 86% that it's not helping me in? And so they said, oh, no, we don't look at that. We just look at how it might help you. And I decided that, if you're going to destroy my kidney, my liver, my heart, and all these other things for 14%, that's not going to work for me. So I refused chemo. And I have to say that I had doctors really become very upset with the fact that I wanted to take my treatment in a different direction because they're so used to, get surgery, cut out the cancer, then get chemo, then get radiation. And that's the standard of care, but the standard of care isn't appropriate for everyone. And not everybody needs that much radical intervention. And so I denied the chemo. And so they tried to sneak in chemo through the drugs, the anastrozole and stuff. And they said, oh, here, you have cancer meds so that we can make sure that we reduce your possibility of getting cancer. But again, it was that piece of, at the time, they didn't tell me, well, this is chemotherapy in a pill form. And I ended up where I had a lot of complications with that as well. It got to the point where I would walk down the street and you swear I was drunk because it destroyed my inner ear. So yo caminaba así, left, right. And until this day, I still walk. If you watch me walking down the street, I start tipping to the left or tipping to the right. So I stopped that as well. And then for the radiation, because I developed an immune disorder called sweet syndrome, which is something that I really want to get the word out about sweet syndrome. And I'll explain that in a second. But I got sweet syndrome, which basically it mimics, the way I can explain it best is that it mimics diabetes in your inability to heal. And it's not that I'm not healing, it's that I heal at such a slow rate that it takes me where somebody would have a cut and they'd heal in like 2 weeks. I would have a cut and I'll heal in 6 months because my immune system isn't working at the same rate. And so, so I ended up having sweet syndrome and I couldn't go into radiation because you have to be healed. Your scars have to at least be healing. And my scars weren't healing. I actually had open skin. And so, so I couldn't do radiation either. But without the radiation, without the chemo, I have to say I'm still cancer free now, 7 years out. So I am cancer free. And I'm very particular about saying cancer free as opposed to being in remission. Because for me, remission means that you're waiting for your recurrence, And so I look at cancer at remission as being a little bit pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not. You either have it or you don't, So, so that's the way I look at that. And so when somebody says, oh, well, are you in remission? I'm like, no, I'm cancer free. I don't have it in my body at the moment. I don't plan to have it in here again. And if I do, it's not because I didn't take the meds. It's because something new occurred. And that's the way that I try to educate other people. It's not that you're having, it's not the same issue. So if you have, you know, if you're cancer free today and 10 years down the road, you get diagnosed with a cancer, it's not that it's been sitting and waiting, it's that something happened that your body wasn't able to keep restoring itself. And now you have a new situation. And now you handle this one from this perspective, you know. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for that. I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, wow, you are strong. And
mhm.
you know, being able to advocate for yourself in the way that you did, I think about, when I was sitting in that doctor's office and I brought support with me. And yeah, I just, and I know other women, I follow, I'm part of some groups,
Good.
and it's whatever the doctor says, right? Because you think that's what's
Yes.
right. And so I love that. That's really
Yeah.
inspiring to hear all the things that
Yeah.
you have said.
Thank you. And I think it's one of those things where we're all individuals. And so we all have to choose for ourselves what we want, how we want to progress. And so, I have met women that are like, I'm not a doctor. They could do whatever they want. I just want to be alive. And it's like, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. And I've seen the ones that have said, no, I'm not going to do any more treatment, or I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. I mean, I happen to be one of those, but it's my choice. It's my quality of life. And then you have everybody in between. Well, I'm struggling and it's okay. I'll just struggle with the side effects. And I always say that when you're going into the doctor and the doctor says, oh, it's normal that you have neuropathy. It's normal that you can't feel your feet. It's normal that, that you feel like Chucky is at the bottom of your feet, just stabbing you. And they always say, oh, well, that's normal. And I'm like, no, 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 no. That's not normal. It's not normal for you to feel that, but it is a side effect. So let's use the correct words. Because when you say it's normal, then when somebody is going in and saying, oh, well, I have these issues with my medication, and the doctor says, oh, don't worry, it's normal, then she says, oh, well, there's nothing I can do. But when you say, wait a minute, it's not normal, it is a side effect that you're having. And depending on how severe it is, do we need to move you from this medication to another medication? Do we need to do other things for you instead of using what's here? Because doctors get to where they're so focused on, this is my treatment plan, and that's the way we're going to do it, and that's the way I do it for everybody, and so that's it, my way or the highway. And I have had where, for myself, I've had a doctor actually tell me that I had brain cancer because I refused to take the medication she prescribed. And this was because I told her, and I have to backtrack a little bit, but I have been suffering for 6 months from major migraines. And at this point, I was already about a year out in my diagnosis, and I had refused the treatment to continue with the treatment. So they were just monitoring me. And so when I went in and I said, look, I've been having migraines for 6 months. I don't know what's going on. They're so bad that I feel like my brain is gonna, explode. And she goes, that's because you refuse to take medication. And I'm looking at her like, excuse me? And she goes, yes, you have a brain tumor because you refuse to take your medication. And I have to say that I did a lot of adjectives, and you heard them all the way to the front of her office, because I'm like, how could you say such a thing when you haven't even done any tests? And she's like, oh, I'm just trying to be thorough. And I'm like, no, you're trying to scare me into doing what you want me to do. And so, she goes, oh, no, 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 we'll have the test. We'll do an MRI of your brain, make sure that there isn't anything there. And so we did it. She said she was going to get it to me right away. It took her over a month to get me the results, over a month. So, but the funny thing is that my mechanic diagnosed my brain tumor. Because I took my car in to my mechanic and I said, look, I'm having a little bit of issue. Can you just check out my car? And he goes, oh, okay, no problem. And then like 15 minutes later, he walks in and he goes, Charley, have you been having migraines lately? And I'm like, what? And he goes, have you been having migraines? And I was like, yeah, I've been having really bad migraine. He goes, oh yeah, you know, you have a leak in your exhaust system and it's pumping into your car, into
Wow.
the interior of your car. And I just burst into laughter. And I'm like, thank you. You just solved my brain tumor, you know?
Yes.
So it was that piece of, you do have doctors that will be inappropriate. And it becomes that piece of, if you're not standing up for yourself, or if you don't take somebody with you to stand up for you, then you're going to be at the mercy of somebody else. And sadly, many of the physicians do get a kickback off the medicine that they use for you. And those medicines, like one chemo treatment can cost you $10,000-$20,000. And they get a kickback off of that. So imagínate if they turn around and they tell you, well, you know, you're going to need to have 72 chemo treatments in the next 6 months. 72 times what, 30,000? I mean, that's a house in the Hamptons, you know? So the government actually is trying to step in and rule that illegal, but it's still up in the air. So you have to be very careful of, are you following the doctor's dictates? Are you asking any questions? Are you going to groups and talking to other women? Are you keeping a diary of, look, I started this medication and this is how I feel. I'm fatigued, or I'm weak, or my lips swelled up. You know, one of the medicine that they put me on when I refused to take one of the ones that they had, because it made me trip. They put me on another one, and I woke up the next morning, my lips, yo tenía bembe lips, you know what, like we say in Puerto Rico, bembe lips, and my lips were out to here, and I couldn't move. I had to talk like this, because every time I moved my lips, it felt like they were gonna bust open. And what I thought was funny was that my physician actually yelled at me for taking the medicine at night, because she wanted me to take it during the day. So she said it was my fault that I took it at night and fell asleep to wake up to an allergic reaction. So, you know, you see some of that. I have to say, when I got to Florida, I did meet a doctor. Her name is Dr. Hartman, the most wonderful oncologist I've ever met. Because she actually took a look at me and she was talking to me and she goes, you know what, you seem a little depressed. And I was like, well, you know, I am feeling a little lonely. I don't have family here or anything, and so on. And she connected me with a vocational counselor, of all things. And the woman just started helping me and encouraging me and so on. And then I ended up where I did the play. 3 weeks later, I had the play being done here in Florida. But you know, as far as treatment goes, I had crazy treatment, but it's not what I like to focus on. I like to focus on how all of the things that happen and all the insanity that went along with it motivated me to go and help somebody else. And so that's really what I like to focus on. Because it is that piece of, if I can just help, you know, one person for one question and give you the answers you needed, that makes me happy, because then you're going to be more empowered to go and do something else and go and try something else. And maybe, you know, I say that this condition will actually let you become more powerful, because you start out quiet little mouse and you're roaring by, you know, your 6th month or something, and you're just like, no, I think I read somewhere and I did something else. And so it lets you be able to grow in that way, if that's what you want to do. You know, not everybody does, but if that's what you want to do, then that's what will happen.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for that. So, you walked us through, you know, what got you into writing this play, right?
Yeah.
Have you always been a creative person? What was it that made that switch? Because that's creativity. What was the
Yeah.
switch that got you to that? What happened?
My switch wasn't so much creative. My switch was being pissed off. I always say, you make me mad, I will rule the world. because it tends to be my motivator. So when I was starting to do the television show was because I wasn't getting information. And then it became okay, well, let's write about all these things. So I wrote a book called Breast Cancer from Diagnosis to Surgery. So here's just information about, here's all the tests you're going to have. Here's the things that you should know. Here's how to put your support group together, just internal support group. And so I wrote that as this is what you need to know. And it started out as a handout. And the handout ended up being 200 and something pages, and so we put it into a book. And so from there, I got a lot of information. We started doing the television show. And then I discovered that men can get breast cancer because it's like, you don't think about men. And so it's like I was so focused on women and what was happening with me and the women that I knew. And it's like, oh, wow, wait a minute, men do get breast cancer. And so I connected with Breast Cancer Happens, Male Breast Cancer Happens, and they invited me to their event. And I wanted to interview them to see, well, how do men differ than women? And so all of a sudden it became, I started doing interviews with all the men and seeing what they were going through and some of the horrors that they went through. And the different ways that they're treated. And then I went back and started interviewing women and saying, okay, well, how were you treated and what was going on? And from those interviews came a documentary. And I started doing a documentary on that. And if you go to our website, cancertamer.org, you'll see there's 3 documentaries. And then from the documentary came the play. Because it was just, I told this one lady, I said, oh, and really it started out as a stand-up because I wanted to share all the insanity. And then the woman says, oh, well, you can never do it'll take you 3 years to write a play. And I'm like, 3 years? What are you talking about, 3 years? She goes, yeah, it'll take you 3 years to write a play. Come back to me in 3 years. And I'm like, I'll get this done in 3 weeks. And sure as hell, I wrote the play, got it all set up. And I went back to her and I said, here's the play. Would you do this? And she goes, oh, no, we can't do it. So I talked to my co-star and I was like, well, let's find some funding. And we actually ended up finding funding. We applied for a grant. We got the grant. And so we did the play in New York and we actually incorporated the documentaries. We had done 2 documentaries at the time. One was called Messages of Hope and one was called Faces of Breast Cancer. And Nidia, one of our comadres, actually helped with the filming for Messages of Hope, her and her hubby. So that was really great. And so we did the documentaries, we did the play. And what I loved was that she came, the woman from the theater came and she goes, if I'd have known it was going to be this good and this well accepted, I would have produced it. And I'm like, pues, you missed your opportunity. So, but it has been the play, and the play wasn't just about me. There are some stories that I've gone through and experienced, but the play is like 100 different stories from 100 different people, and all the stories are true. It's based on all the interviews that I've done, and it's telling their story, both from a man's perspective, a woman's perspective, and the things that they went through. And we touch on some really important topics from what I believe is, nobody ever wants to talk about suicide or depression. And that is one of the topics that we talk about during the play. And we do it from a fun perspective. And what I say from a fun perspective is because when I was interviewing the woman, she was actually telling me about all the different ways that she wanted to kill herself. And, as a therapist, I'm like, holy crap, I might need to, and I'm ready to like call 911, get her admitted and get her under observation. And then she goes, but Charley, I thought I'd hang myself, but I couldn't figure out how to get the noose around my neck. And I thought if I put the noose on my neck and I jump off the balcony, I'm just gonna break my leg, and that's just not gonna work. And so I'm sitting there and I started laughing, and she goes, "Yeah, it is kind of funny, isn't it?" And she was going through all these different ways that she had thought about killing herself, and all the different ways why it wouldn't work. And so, while I'm sitting there listening to her, I'm going, okay, isn't that wonderful? Because you're noticing for yourself, this isn't going to work. And then at the end, she realized, well, this isn't really what I want to do. And so it's one of the parts that we put in the play to say, this really is a very hard topic to discuss, but it's also a topic that we need to discuss because most people don't want to talk about it. And it's just like when one of the things that I tell individuals is it's okay that your family can be your support system. However, you cannot use your family as your therapy. You need to step outside, get a therapist, so that this way you can tell them all the crazy thoughts that you're having, and also the fact that what I find when you're trying to talk to your family will react very harshly if you say, well, I don't want to do treatment anymore, or I don't want to take medication anymore, or, I don't want to be a survivor. And it's like, I know, no te muera, no te mate, no te, well, no, you're going to be fine. You're going to survive. And it's like, it's not about that. I need to talk about, these issues as well. And when you try to talk about it with your family, they freak out. And so having a therapist or having a support group will allow you to be able to address those issues that you really need to address. And having somebody to listen to you when you're just, you need to blow off steam and just say, it's not that I'm suicidal, but sometimes I feel I'd rather be dead than keep going this way. And so if you tell one person, they might say, oh my God, you need to be committed. And it's like, no, you don't. You're frustrated. And you need to get that frustration out. And it's not always a good thing to do with your family because they're also freaking out on their end. Ay, Dios mío, my sister, my daughter, my wife, something's going to happen to her. And now what am I going to do? And part of what we did for the television show is that we don't talk about treatment because I believe every woman, every man has the right to choose for themselves what they want to happen to their body, kind of like very pro-life, and so it is your choice. What I will talk to you about is how to live a better life, how to, if that's the decision you want to make, then I'm going to support you all the way. If you don't want to take your medicine anymore, don't take the medicine anymore. Decide for yourself what it is you want and be able to then realize that I don't want to say that there's consequences, but every action that you take is what's right for you at this moment. And that's where you need to go from. That's where you gain your strength, because it's something as simple as, no, I don't want to do chemo because I don't think it's really going to help me. What else do you have for me? And that's the piece that the physicians really don't push. They don't talk about, because there is evidence out there that shows that if you don't have the standard of care, you can still survive. You're not going to drop dead tomorrow if you don't have your surgery today, or you may not need the conventional treatment and you go and you do alternative health care and holistic care. And that is also going to help you. And so I always recommend whichever one you want. You talk to your doctor about treatment, you talk to me about living. And from there we go.
Thank you for that. I wonder, like, I know the inspiration behind writing the play, but how do you do that? How does that come to mind? Hey, I'm going to write a play, and where do you start? Like, how do you write a play?
How did you do that? I have to say, this was my first play. And so I'm really proud that it won a regional award, and I'm up for the national award right now, in the military. And so I didn't set out to so much write the play. I set out to share these 10 things that I want. And that's the way I always write my books. I want to share this information with you, and that's what I'm going to talk about. And so in the play, I wanted people to have like a day in the life of a cancer patient or a breast cancer patient. And so I took the play from, here's the diagnosis, here's how you got told your diagnosis, here's dreams and how does that work? Because there is documentation out there that dreams can save your life, that you start thinking about, like you'll have a dream that it's like, maybe you should go to the doctors. Maybe you should do this, and so your dreams are your subconscious talking to you, or your spirits and your guides talking to you. And so we did a section on how dreams can save your life. And so that was one of those pieces where for me, it was really important because my dreams were talking to me. And then we went through the suicide piece. We went through, thanking our caregivers. And the part that I really wanted to convey was in the Dear Diary. And so it's called the Dear Diary because it's people talking to themselves in their diary and then sharing their story and the different things that happened to them. And so as I was writing it, I took it from start to finish, but then I started adding all the different stories. And I couldn't add all the stories. So I added different stories for different people in different areas. So we start the play from, Dear Diary, today I found a lump in my breast, and is it cancer, and so we have the actors coming out and talking about that. And then how did you get, how were you informed that you had breast cancer? Because not everybody's story is the same, and some are told in a good way, and your doctor calls you in, Mita, I'm so sorry, let me, you have your Grey's Anatomy moment, where we're just stroking your hair but we're going to do everything we can and we're going to help you out. And there's others that you just get it over the phone, or or they tell you right there and they go, oh yeah, I can see you got breast cancer, but I can't tell you until tomorrow, And so, so all these pieces of being able to get all the stories in and getting as many stories as I could into the play that could bounce off of each other. And don't ask me how I did it, because I was just going off of what I thought was best, and then putting in, plugging in, okay, I want them to do this. I want the lights to be this way. And so I started learning a little bit about how to be able to, the things that you needed when you were writing the play. So I was able to do that. And then it became where I started co-directing. And so learning how to co-direct, which was so much fun. And I have to say, because in the first time that we did it back in 2019, right before the pandemic hit, I was the person in it. I was one of the actresses. And on the second one here in Florida, I actually got to sit in the audience and watch. And that was so interesting, because as I'm watching them, I'm like, oh my God, but that person was in my head and they were saying it this way. And look at what they're doing. So it was like an out-of-body experience where the voices that were in my head are actually right in front of me saying what I wrote, for them to say. So that was really interesting and a lot of fun. Lots of fun. So I would say that anybody can write a story, anybody can write a play. Anybody can write their memoirs. It's what you want to bring across, how you want it to come across to, so I write nonfiction. So everything that I write is, it's true and educational, but it's also the part of deciding what it is that I want to convey, because there's so many stories that I wanted to share, but I only had like one way of saying it. And so I tried to pick the stories that would really show different phases of breast cancer and the different experiences that people had. Some were good, some weren't. Some were so damn hilarious that, you just sit there going, that couldn't have happened to that person. And I'm like, yep, everything's true. Because I've actually had people go, well, was that real? Did you just write it that way? And I said, no, I wrote it, but that was actually somebody's story. I just wrote it the way that I thought you would understand it better. So that was really fun. And it is, I have to say, it is very, very empowering, very humbling when you see how you brought everybody's story together. And so at the end of the play, and I get teary when I think of this, but at the end of the play for this one, I always put a guest book because I want to know what you're thinking. So I sent a guest book around, and I had some volunteers that were going around. And one of the comments that got me was, two of the comments that hit me was, one was the woman said, I have to wait 45 days to get the results about my tests, which was one of the comments that I had made in the play, that the person had to wait 45 days to see her doctor. And the comment in the guest book was, I have to wait 45 days to get my test results back to know if I have cancer or not. And she goes, she said, thank you for letting me see some of the things so I can get stronger. But the one that really hit me was the comment that was made that said, thank you. Thank you for letting me know I'm not alone. And it was signed George.
Wow. Wow.
And that's why it got me, because in the play, we actually have a man in the play having gone through breast cancer. And so for him to come out and say that, it was like, isn't this awesome? Because the men in particular you don't think about men having breast cancer. And so they slide under the radar, or when they do have it and somebody knows in the medical community, they kind of get pushed to the side. And so for him to have said that, to just come out, and he didn't even, typically people will come up to you, and he just wrote it in the book and left, and I thought that was, I thought that to me made this all wonderful, because I helped that one person that felt alone.
Right. You never
So,
know. You never know.
You never know how
help
you
somebody.
affect people. Yeah. From just one little thing. So I thought, for me, that said it all. I'm like, okay, we got to do the play in another state, in another town, and because I do want the play to be able to go to other states, other counties, to be able to bring the knowledge out, and not just in October, because breast cancer happens 365
That's
days
right.
a year.
Right.
So being able to have it all around. And so I offer it to people. If you have an organization that is a nonprofit, and you want to raise funds for your organization, and you want to use the play as doing that, hazlo. There's only 3 requirements for the play. So I'll put it out there. The only 3 requirements that we have is that you have to give credit to Cancer Tamer, the foundation that I started. You got to let them know that I wrote the play, and in there somewhere, make a donation to cancer tamer because we live on, we live on donations. Everything that we do for women with breast cancer is free. So we don't charge. We give the books away, all the books that I've written, we give them away to breast cancer patients. We actually give away lymphedema pillows. We do one-on-one counseling. We do peer mentorship. The television show that we produce, that's all, we pay for everything. And so just trying to find funds so that we can keep going and do what we need to do. But it's one of those things where it's like, my thing is you're doing education and you're helping get the word out, and you're helping empower other women and men who are going through this. And like that man said, I'm not alone. And that's the big thing for me. It's you're not alone. And regardless of whether everything is hunky-dory or you get these, the crazy, insane people around you, that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I am so grateful because I was just diagnosed in March of this year, so I'm in the midst of things. So I will definitely be in touch with the organization.
Yeah.
I know there are questions in the chat that I do want to get to.
Okay.
Before I do that, if you only spend 30 seconds.
Great.
As I said, I am, this is recent for me, and I've joined a couple of groups, and one of the things that is not talked about, it's actually like a separate group that I've joined, is about what happens when we have breast cancer. If you are menopausal, you're put right into menopause, and if you're post, you still develop symptoms, and I'm gonna say the word that sex is really difficult because some women develop vaginal atrophy.
Atrophy.
Atrophy. There's dryness, but reading stories of how painful it is, and how marriages have broken up, relationships over it, and I just don't feel like it's talked about. And I know
it's actually not, and so I'm glad you brought that up. So I didn't start out as a breast cancer advocate. I'm actually a clinical sexologist, sex therapist. And so one of the pieces that I see and that I've seen over the 7 years is nobody talks about sex. I remember when I asked my doctor right at the beginning of having been diagnosed, and she's like, oh, well, here you have to take anastrozole and take these meds and so on. And I was like, okay, but how's that going to affect my sex life? And she goes, what? Nobody ever asks us that. And I'm like, well, I'm not dead yet, and I'm only 54, and so I want to have more sex, And she goes, oh, no. You're just happy to be alive. And it was just dismissed. And I'm like, well, if this is going to affect my sex life, I really don't want these pills already. And there is a lot of, I would say, the medication, and it's funny because it's one of the comments that we make a lot during the play about sex, because I want to make sure that people know about sex. And so you do, the medicine does dry you up, so our comment is you're dried down under, and so it does dry you up vaginally. And it's one of those things where it can become very painful. And so being able to talk to your doctor about what you need, and realizing that, you might need a little more stimulation, you might need a bit more lubrication. And so having silicone silicone lube to be able to help with those. And realizing too, because my piece of it from a sexual perspective, a sexologist perspective, is that as women, we tend to go, oh, well, we'll just bear it because we don't want our partner not to have sex. And, and even if it's painful, I'll just and put on the smiling face. Pero it is that piece of we're also not comfortable with our bodies anymore because, our breasts may be different or we may not have them anymore. Or we have a lot of scarring. And so that also adds to our inability to feel like we're to feel like we're essential as we used to be. And so because we're in our heads instead of our bodies and allowing ourselves to be excited, then you don't make that natural lubrication in your body to be able to be comfortable. Also, the fact that when you if you had a hysterectomy, you have a whole other issue going on, so a lot of pain with sex after your hysterectomy. So one of the pieces is that people don't talk about is you got to change your positions. You can't be the woman on the bottom anymore. You have to be able to control the depth of penetration. And so you have to take the top role. And so being able to work with your doctor, and I kind of say, it's kind of like being pregnant. If you've been pregnant before and you wanted sex during pregnancy, how did you have it when you had the big belly? You did different positions, right? Same thing now with sex, because you can't be on your chest or you can't feel the pressure on your chest. So your partner being on your chest is painful. And so the minute that you go, okay, I'll grin and bear it, ahí se acabó. You're not going to want to have sex anymore. It's going to be few and far between because it's painful. And who the hell wants painful sex?
Right.
Unless you're doing BDSM, and that's something totally different. So being able to change positions, being able to do more lubrication, being able to have a little more time in getting excited, getting your body ready. And it is being able to be comfortable with your body. Because again, we're going from having a certain look to ourselves for so many decades, and now we don't have it anymore. I make a joke of I used to be double D plus, now I'm a B minus. So the girls are kind of gone, and I could do buttoned up shirts now where I never could before. Pero it is that part of, this is a different body for me too. And so getting comfortable with that and talking to your partner about that. And so that is one of the workshops that we do on Body Love, on getting back in touch with your body to be comfortable with it again, and even to have your partner comfortable too. And I know that there is, and I wanted to talk about the mermaids, remind me about the mermaids, and about the study that's being done. There is, an organization here that are actually looking for Latinas with breast cancer who are in relationships. And their whole thing is to talk about intimacy and how intimacy plays a part in your relationship. Because I have sadly seen where a lot of individuals that have gone through breast cancer, for women, their relationship ends. And their partner leaves, for whatever reason is on the agenda, their partner leaves. However, I see that for men with breast cancer, their partner stays and becomes more doting on them. And so there's such a big disparity between the two. And so it is that part of, well, how do you deal with that too? And realizing that sex and intimacy are two vastly different things, because you can be intimate with your partner and not be sexual, and vice versa. And so how do you use that? How do you interact with your partner now? And the one good piece about the breast cancer is that you can start a whole new relationship with your partner and say, okay, I'm a different person now, because you really are. The way you think, the way you look, the way you internalize things is different. And so being able to start a different relationship with your partner and what that's going to look like is up to you. But there is a study going on here in Florida at the University of Central Florida. So if anybody's interested in that, I'll get the information for them. And so they're looking at relationships, not sex, but relationships for that. And then the other piece that I wanted to, I'm doing a little plug in here, but we are doing a Cinco de Mammogram mammography in May here in Florida. And one of the contests that we're putting together is the breast cancer mermaid. And so the way I look at it is, you know, a woman is sensual, is alluring, is mystical. It's, you know, she has this allure. And when you have breast cancer, you think you've lost all that. And so I wanted the connection of the mermaid, because you see that in a mermaid. And so imagínate if a mermaid had breast cancer, then what would she look like? You know, and so would she have one shell or two? Would she have no shells anymore? Would she still have her hair? Would her fishtail be the same way? You know, and so being able to bring these two connections of, here's what we think of as, you know, this mystical, powerful woman, and here's the woman, and blending the two together. So it's a call out to any artist that would love to participate. You just do your rendition of the breast cancer mermaid. What would the mermaid look like to you if she had breast cancer? And on a side note is the fact that if we don't take care of our waterways, those mermaids are going to die anyway from all the pollution in the water.
Right.
So yeah.
Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you. All right. So we have about 6 to 8 minutes left. And there's 2 questions in the chat that I'd like to get to. One is from Lisa. What activities have you engaged in to help you cope with cancer? Meditating, chanting, journaling. What is it?
So for me, the activities that I've done, I actually moved to Florida, and this was my start over. So I moved to Florida about a year ago, to just start over and heal fully. And so my thing is to be able to create. I love creating things. I love restoring things. I love writing, but writing sometimes drives me nuts because there's so much in my head that I'm trying to get out. Pero my meditation, you know, people say, oh, well, you have to meditate every day and you get yourself in, you know, and you get yourself feeling better and you get healthier because you meditate and all this. Mija, I cannot sit still for 5 minutes. I can't do it for 5 minutes. I can't do it for 5 seconds. You know, I'm constantly having to do something. Otherwise, I feel like, oh, I'm not achieving. And so for me, it's being able to do my meditation is to restore a statue, paint something, you know, work on my lanai and make that beautiful so that when people want to come and get a respite from cancer, you know, they can come here and they can sit there and do whatever they want. And I opened it to you ladies también from Las Comadres. You know, we can have a mini comadrazo here and we just hang out and just have fun. I have a pool, you know, so I had to have my pool in Florida. But my way of dealing with things is to be able to do something creative. So for me, that's my meditation. During the pandemic, Jackie actually was teaching us on crocheting. And I did so much crocheting. I got like 7 buckets worth of stuff that we crocheted. And that was my meditation, you know, and healing.
That's good.
So yeah, and it's whatever you want to do. It's whatever resonates with you.
Thank you. So we have now two more questions. So we just got another one, and they're really good questions. So from Anna, Anna, how has cancer affected your outlook on life?
Wow, how much time we have? So I guess in a good way, I don't think in a bad way. Um, it's made me more assertive, I think. And I say assertive as opposed to aggressive. Because I've had people say, "Oh, you're so aggressive." I'm like, I'm not aggressive. I'm just assertive, and you're not used to people standing up to you. Um, so it's made me more aware of life. It's made me more aware of the stupidity that we get stuck in because we get upset que alguien dijo esto, alguien dijo that, somebody just rolled their eyes at me and now I have to be angry with them forever. It's like I don't have that much time in my life left. If you want to be silly, then you be silly and you just go over there and be silly. But me, I'm going to be happy, and so I look at life from the perspective of choose. And I actually have my bracelet. I don't know if you can see this, but I wear a bracelet or I'll write on my arms because I like writing messages on my arms as opposed to tattoos because I want them to go away and then I can write a new message. And so this one says choose. And so the ability to realize that every moment of your life is a choice. You can choose to be angry or you can choose to be happy. You can choose to eat right or you can choose to eat junk food. You can choose to exercise or you can choose to be a couch potato. You can choose to be angry with somebody or you can choose to just say, screw it. Let them deal with that stupidity because I don't want to deal with it anymore. Life is too short and too long. It's too short for stupidity and it's too long for stupidity. So choose for yourself how you want to live your life and then realize that if the people around you aren't providing you with what you need, then you can love from afar because you do need to get toxic people out of your life. And by that, I mean, sometimes toxic people are your family, are your loved ones, are your partners, are your kids, your next door neighbor. Do you really want to fight with them all the time? Because, okay, what does that solve? But you can say, you know what? That's the way you look at things. That's the way you believe. And that's okay. I don't need to change your opinion. Pero para mí, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at it from this perspective and I'm just going to have fun. And that's the way that it's changed my life because I have to say sometimes I was very high strung, and I have the way I want to do my things. And I still have the way I want to do my things. Pero I look at it from I'm able to go, oh, that's what they're dealing with, but I don't have to be part of that. I can watch them. Kind of like watching TV. The whatever you were watching just didn't sit well with you, but change it. And that's your choice. Change it. Do something else. Do something more. And I guess for me, it's like I want to see everything and do everything. So I've gotten to where I'm a little more proactive in life, whereas most times people go, oh, well, I'll do that. I'm saving up for my vacation. I'm going to go on vacation in 5 years. And I'm like, what? 5 years? Why the hell are you waiting 5 years? It's tomorrow. Go tomorrow. Make your tickets because you don't know whether you have any kind of cancer or anything. You don't know if tomorrow is really going to come for you. And so do it now. And so if you love somebody, tell them now. Whether they return that love or not, that's on them. But you were able to say, Mira, you know what? I really love you. I wish we can be different, or I wish this and this and this. And if it happens, great. If it doesn't, you got your wish out in the universe. And now you keep going and you move on. And you do the next thing and the next thing. And being able to live your life for today, for tomorrow, because really you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if you if you get hit by a bus, or you have a heart attack, or if you fall, you're walking down the street and you fall into a pit, I mean, you really don't know. And so instead of waiting for something to happen, and instead of waiting, oh, I'll write my book, or I'll write my story, or I'll go on vacation, do it now, because now is all you really have.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that
Yeah.
advice. Do it now.
Do it now. Even have sex now. It's always
yeah.
good.
Thank you for that advice.
Yeah.
So Eileen had put which I
Sure.
think you have answered, and I know we're at time, but it's been 7 years. How have you changed, and is your life very different? And I think you've said
Yeah.
a lot about that.
Yeah, it really is different.
Yeah. And she says that I believe for her cancer started in April, and she wants to go back to work.
Yeah.
Eileen, thinking of you, and prayers.
Yeah.
And
And there is an organization called Cancer and Careers. So if you're going back to work, they also have wonderful information on 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 talking to your employer about returning to work, on what modifications might need to happen, on any, safeguarding your rights, because you do have rights under the Disability Act. So they can't fire you because you have breast cancer, or you have appointments that you have to go to the doctor. And for those of you in New York, there's actually a law, and I don't know if it's in the other states as well, but in New York, there is a law that your employer has to give you, what is it, 4 to 5 hours off a year to go and get your breast exam and your mammogram. So it's an actual law.
wow.
Yeah.
I have to
Which
look-
is really cool, I thought.
yeah, that's
So,
amazing.
and it's not your sick day. It's that they have to give it to you and you get paid for that day, just like you were working. So I thought that was pretty cool that they did that.
I'll have to look and see if Massachusetts offers
Yeah.
that. Well, we are at a time, and I'm sorry, there was who is the
No,
we that you
you're
mentioned.
if you guys want to go a little over, I'm fine with that. To be able to answer more questions. And then you're always welcome to contact me directly as well, at cancertamer.org. And Maria can give you all my information, and you're welcome to call, and as long as you don't call before 11 o'clock, because I do try to be lazy in the mornings. But it's my day to connect with the universe until 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maria, Nora, do we have a couple more minutes, or should we?
Yes, do the last question.
Oh, great.
Okay.
So who is the we that you mentioned regarding the book and play?
I do the royal we. So so we is me and the universe and everybody else that helps out. So when I wrote the play, I all the people's stories, those are the we. And so I considered them having helped me write the play, because they allowed me to interview them to be able to share their story. So I consider that's part of the we. Same thing with the book. When I write the books, I'm actually writing a new book now called Breast Cancer 101, What You Should Know But Aren't Told. And I was hoping to finish it by December. And I was telling my sister today, okay, I have 159 questions to answer. I sat down and I started writing the book. I've gotten through 4 questions and 2 topics. And I'm still not even done yet, because I have the 159. But there's so many things to discuss, and so much to share. It's that piece of, somebody said, well, you should make it into a podcast and just answer all the questions that way. And I'm going, okay, well, maybe I might do that. But it is that reference that I want you to have, because the questions aren't being answered. And when you go to your physician may tell you one thing, but the wonderful thing is to ask more than one person. You know, I mean, for treatment, you go to your treatment team if you don't agree with them or you want, and here's the thing that people don't know is that just because your doctor said that this is the way it goes, doesn't mean that's the way it has to go. You can go, okay, thank you very much. Can I have a second opinion? Can I have a third opinion? And your insurance company has to allow that. So your insurance company cannot deny you having a second opinion. The piece that I would say is when you go for your second opinion, do not do it with the same clinic. You need to go somewhere else because your second opinion, if you do it with the doctor that's in the same clinic, they're going to tell you the same answer. What you want is an independent second opinion. So if you're going to Mount Sinai, you want to go to Moffitt, you know, and go somewhere else to go, hey, this is what they're advising me to do. What do you think I should do? And then on that, you also have a third opinion, which is yours. Is that the way you want to go? And realizing that you don't have to be, you know, have 20 years as an oncologist. You can decide, mira, this is not the way I want to go, but I want to do a little bit of that and a little bit of this. And here's my spiritual beliefs. And here's what I want. And here's what I want. And here's what I want. And so being able to incorporate all that. And I think the one piece, and it's one of the big topics that I'm doing on this book that is taking me forever to answer. It's don't just look at the treatment that you're going to get and how they're going to do it. Look at the aftercare. How are you going to treat me after you do my surgery? How are you going to treat me after you give me this medication? How are you going to treat me after all this craziness goes? Because that's the piece that nobody ever asked. And if you knew what the aftercare was going to be, you might not do that, what they're asking you to do. Or you might say, okay, well, I see what you're doing, but these are the things that I need in place. After the surgery, I need to stay in the hospital. After the surgery, I need assistance in my home. After, this is what I need in place. And having those pieces in place before you move forward. Because you're not going to die if you delay surgery. You know, it's not like you have, you know, a tumor in your throat and it's blocking your airway. You have time. And so being able to say to the doctor, look, I need a little bit of time to decide. And that's okay. And that's your right. And so deciding for yourself, here's the things I need to know before we move forward. It's the same way you do when you cross the street, right? You don't just like throw yourself in the middle of the highway. You go, okay, well, I'm going to look this way. I'm going to look that way. I'm going to cross this street. I'm going to watch that car. I'm going to, you know, you've got your plan on how you're going to cross the street. So imagínate, where's your plan on how you're going to treat breast cancer? How you're going to treat any other kind of illness? And so that's the piece to know. And what happens when I get on the other side of the street? That's the piece you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you so much.
well, thank you.
This has been so informative, inspiring. Miriam wrote, this was awesome. Thank you for opening your heart and sharing, Charley. And
Awesome. Thank
I
you.
am in for Comadrazo at your house. So we're
Oh,
coming.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you. It's just do it. Don't wait. Do what
Just
you
do
want
it.
to do
No.
now. And I would say I'm getting from you and I can, you know, relate to you is confidence comes to do things comes with
Doing
an
it.
experience like this because it is a scary experience. And so it does change your mindset, you know. So
Yeah.
so thank you.
And it is that piece of you don't need to get it right. And that's the one thing that I learned. You don't need to get it right. You can make a mistake. And that's okay too. That's part of being alive. So try it out.
Thank
Well,
you. Thank you so
comadres,
much.
thank you, Charley. Thank you, Debbie. And thank you, Maria Ferrer. Really, and thanks to all of you for being here with us. Really, it was inspirational. It was caused a lot of feelings. to come out for me. And I am blessed not to have had to deal with any of these things. And I'm grateful for that. But it also, I want to say, you're not alone. Remember that. You are not alone. There's many people around you that are here for you. And Charley, I don't know if there is a book out there for affirmations for cancer patients, but that might be a very interesting book.
We actually
And-
do have a book.
Well, wonderful. You know, maybe one of the things we can do to the people who are here and those who registered is send them a list of the books that you have available, because I know that they would be very informative and very helpful to them. A recording of this program will be made available on Comadres YouTube channel soon. And, you know, thank you all for being with us. We do have other programming coming up, so mark your calendars for November 27th, which is our book teleconference, and Maria will be sending information out about that again. And then on Wednesday, December 13th, we've got Comadres Kitchen with Lola, who will showcase edible gifts for the holidays. And then on one that's not on here is November 16th, we're going to be redoing AI tools. So those of you who maybe haven't looked at Latinas and AI tools, so that we know how to deal with the future, learn all these tools and be ready to take advantage of them. That's on November 16th. And then on December 21st is our annual holiday concert with Sol y Canto. And then on January 1st, of course, we have our new beginnings. So calendar all of those things, and we look forward to seeing all of you again. Thank you so, so much for being with us.